Here's part 5 of the Circle Time Structure series on how to create your own circle time structure and tailor it to your age group. So in parts 1 through 4, we discussed why it is important to have a circle time structure. Then we went over my personal circle time structure that I use and I suggest clients use. And then we also reviewed how to adapt it for early childhood music classes and caregiver child music classes. But this video, let's talk about how to tailor your circle time structure or your music class structure for your specific group. So I just want to go over some notes on how I created my structure and came up with a flow that worked for me. So the first thing I did was I looked at my group's needs and the time allocated for each type of group I was leading. So when I was leading circle times in playgroups and circle times in early intervention, those circle times were typically 10 to 15 minutes. So I knew I had a specific time frame that I needed to follow. For early childhood music classes, I knew the groups needed to be 30 minutes. And then for caregiver child music classes, I knew that the group needed to be around 45 to 50 minutes. So the first thing you need to do is look at the time frame that the center you're working for, the school that you're working with, has allocated for the age group. And then you want to look at what the group needs and fill it with intentional activities, music, or songs. So, are you having trouble holding their attention? And you're supposed to have a 15-minute circle time. If so, could you speak with the director? Could you speak with your supervisor? And could you ask them to start smaller, with a smaller time frame for the group and then build towards it? So that's the first thing that I would suggest, is taking a look at your circle time or your music class and seeing, can I possibly reduce the time frame for this? So when I was working as an early childhood music director and I had 30-minute time frames for early childhood music classes, most of my classes were preschool, pre-kindergarten, and kindergarten. Now, I found that a lot of the preschool classes I was leading was quite challenging to hold their attention for 30 minutes during a music class. I found that when I was working in pre-K and kindergarten, it was a lot easier to keep their attention for that period of time. So the centers and the schools I was working with had already paid for 30-minute classes, so I was expected to fill that time frame with intentional activities that were music-based, that were going to hold their attention and keep them engaged. And so for those type of groups, if you are an early childhood music teacher and you are doing private practice or things like that, if you have clients that are paying you for a specific time slot, it's a little bit more challenging to advocate for the group being shorter because they've already paid for that time slot. So for this, I'm speaking a little bit more to folks that are working in a center setting that maybe see their kiddos every day, every other day, every 3 days, something like that. Let's say you're a Monday, Wednesday, Friday group. You're expected to do a 20-minute circle with pre-K, but you're noticing that they are having a really, really hard time attending for even 5 minutes. If you're noticing this quite a lot, here's what I would recommend you do. I would get a small notebook and I would just write down every day. I would log it with the date, the time, and how many activities you were able to do during circle time, how many songs you were able to do, and the length of that circle time for the day. So the reason I would do that is because that is showing that you have kept track and you have a record of the length of the circle times where children are attending. So let's say you make that log, and then in 2 weeks you look at that and you're seeing they're attending for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Add those up. 5 days, 5 days, add all those numbers up, divide by 10, and that's going to give you your average number of minutes per day children are attending. From that research, I call it research. It's more like field. I wouldn't really call it research. I would call it more data. Data. I'm going to call it data. I would take that data and I'd present that to your supervisor. Hey, so I'm noticing that my class is really only able to attend for circle time for around 6 minutes. I know that we have around 15 to 20 minutes allocated for circle time, but I was wondering if maybe we could start with 6 minute circle times and then have some other intentional activities and then work towards longer circle times. So once your class is able to do 6 minute long circle times, then you can move to 10-minute long circle times by adding in more songs and activities. Then once they're solid with that 10-minute circle time, you can add in more songs, bringing it up to a 12-minute circle time, then a 15-minute circle time. And then in a few months, now we're at an 18 to 20-minute circle time. So by doing that, you're taking a growth approach to it. It's similar to running a 4-minute mile. I gave this example in another video. If I were to go run a 4-minute mile right now, I'd probably take me around 12 minutes because I don't run and I don't like to run. So I would have to really work towards that goal of running a mile in 4 minutes. But if I'm running a mile in 12 minutes, I am not going to set the expectation for myself for the next month to run a mile in 4 minutes, right? Because it's not attainable and it's not realistic. And so if your circle time or your class is seeming really, really, really far off from the allocated amount of time that you're expected to do circle time, and you see these kiddos a lot, I would take that data, present that to your supervisor, and just have an open discussion about being able to have a smaller circle time for now, reassess things, because if children are paying attention for 6 minutes, that's still 6 solid minutes where they are paying attention, right? And so if you can stretch that attention, you're going to eventually be able to build them up to that longer circle time period. So first thing you need to do, look at your group's needs, the allocated time slot, and then move through things that way. Now, if you are expected to lead a class or a group or a circle time for a specific amount of time, we're going to get into that later in the tips. The second thing you want to do when you're creating a personalized circle time structure is you need to look at the songs that are your non-negotiable songs and keep those consistent. There's a really annoying humming outside my door. I live right off a highway. If it's loud, it is what it is. Sorry. So my 3 non-negotiable songs are, number 1, I always do a hello song and a goodbye song / some type of closing chant. So even if my circle time's not at the end of the day, I'm at least having friends know the circle time is over. So that's my first non-negotiable song. Hello song. Children hear that song, they associate it with coming to circle time. Now we have a consistent start to the circle time. Movement song. I always do a movement song within my circle time. And the reason for that is because I have found in every single group I have ever worked in, movement songs go really, really well because children are usually pretty wiggly. It helps to get them regulated. But then more importantly, I've also found that this builds a lot of rapport with students. And this is when students can really open up, is during movement songs when they're having fun. They feel really comfortable. So I always do a movement song. And then I always do a cool down song, a lullaby song, or activity. So I always do a cool down song because it just brings the group's energy down to a really nice grounded place so they know that we are winding down the circle time. So those are my 3 non-negotiable songs. So find your non-negotiable songs that you are going to do consistently every single circle time. Now, let's go to number 3, which is piggybacking off of number 2. Where does your group need more support? That is going to help you determine your non-negotiable songs. So the reason I always start with a hello song is because a lot of the groups I have worked with, they are coming from a very busy transition and they need a consistent, very, very clear start to the circle time. They need a song that is going to signal to them when this song plays, circle time is starting. They need that musical cue that circle time is starting when I hear this song. Because a lot of the times I'm going into classrooms and I'm doing groups. I'm going into a library and I'm doing a group. Even if you're working in a classroom, and when I was working in a classroom setting, children are still coming from another transition. So having that consistent, concise, very clear start to the circle time really helps. Same thing with the goodbye song or the closing chant. Having something to just end circle time really helps bring a clear, consistent, concise end to the circle time. I always do a movement song because a lot of the kids I've worked with are very young. They need movement. They need some way to get their wiggles out and to help them stay regulated. And so I found movement songs to be really, really great to use in all of my groups. Now, perhaps as I work with more students, there might be a time where one of my non-negotiable songs is not a movement song, right? But having this list and having this knowledge in your back pocket, because I know what works and what has worked in the past, if something is not working in the future, I can reassess that from the knowledge I already have and apply something different. But in my experience, movement songs have really, really helped because a lot of my groups have needed that sensory support. Cool down songs. A lot of my groups have loved cool down songs because it brings their energy levels down. So assess, what does your group need? What are their needs? So for example, do your students have less energy? Maybe your circle time is at the beginning of the day right after breakfast. Are they really low energy during this time? Maybe your 3 non-negotiable songs or your non-negotiable songs during circle time that you always do, even if it's a long circle time or a short circle time. Maybe your short circle time looks like hello song, gestural song / song about the season or the topic at hand, cool down song, story, goodbye song. Great. And then your non-negotiable songs or activities would be those things. Do your students love to read books? Then maybe your 3 non-negotiable activities or your 4 non-negotiable activities, even if it's a shorter class, are hello song, movement song, story song or book, cool down song, song to calm down. Do students need more support because they're wiggly? Maybe you start with a hello song, you do 2 movement songs, and then you do a cool down song, regardless if it's a longer or a shorter circle time. But having your non-negotiable songs that no matter what you are doing these songs every single circle time can really, really, really make a big difference. So these are my 3 non-negotiable songs I use in every circle time. However, most circle times that I lead, I will use the structure that I have outlined in part 2 of this series of my circle time structure, where I'm moving from a hello song to a movement song to a gestural song to a movement song to a gestural song, instrument song, and then cool down song. And if I need to make it shorter, I'm using a hello song, a movement song, a gestural song, an instrument song, and then a cool down song. But typically, that structure with those 5 songs works really, really well. 5 songs, right? Yes, hello song, movement song, gestural song, instrument song, cool down song. That structure works really, really well. I'm just talking about the songs I use in every one of my groups. They always include a hello song, a movement song, a cool down song. You get the picture. So number 3, does your group need more than 1 song? What songs go well within your group? Let's talk about that. If your center says, you have to do a 15-minute circle time, even though your group is only attending for 6 minutes. This might happen because I've been in a lot of case scenarios where I've allocated for shorter classes and it's been, no, you have to do it for this length of time. So here's what I'll say about that. Look at what is going well. And if you are going to say nothing's going well in my circle time, I'm going to counter you on that. Okay. If students are attending during the hello song, the movement song, and the gestural song that you're doing, you need to look at what parts within those songs are really holding their attention. I'm going to give you an example. In one of the hello songs that I use, there's a part where we go, hello, whoa, 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 hello. And that whoa, 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 that whoa, whoa, whoa sound had children like so drawn in. Whoa, 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 hello. Whoa, whoa. Why does that sound draw them in? Let's keep going. I was doing more silly songs with a lot of fun vocalizations, like wah ah ah, oh whoa whoa whoa. And those were really holding children's attention. So think about that for a second. If a sound is holding children's attention, is there a way to add in more silly sounds and more vocalizations during your group, during some of the songs? Get creative with this. Look at the other activities that you're doing. Could you add in vocalizations or silly sounds for students to imitate those sounds if that's going well? Just think about it for a second. Let me give you another example. Let's say your students absolutely love doing something really fun and really silly, or like making a specific sound. Sneezing, kids love to say, achoo. They really like that. They find that really, really funny. So, is there a way to incorporate sneezing within your circle time during other songs or other activities? Get creative with it. But then also, achoo, achoo. Sneezing is working on an adaptive goal where children are sneezing into their elbow, so you're teaching them not to spread germs. Then from there, you could work on another adaptive goal on how to blow their nose. But that little gesture, that little act of sneezing can be really fun for them. How could you incorporate that during other activities? Just think on it. Just think on it. Just brainstorm. Let's say your group loves to dance and move around, and you can hold their attention during movement songs for a long time. Bring in movement songs. Bring in other types of movement songs. Bring in really, really, really high intensity movement songs where they're jumping and shaking and they're dancing all around. Bring in movement songs where they're doing freeze dance. That's working on impulse control. Bring in another type of song where they have to dance like animals. Incorporate more movement songs. Let's say your students really, really like looking at things during circle time, and that's going well. What do I mean by that? Let's say you bring in bubbles and they really like bubbles. How could you incorporate bubbles more during the circle time? Let's say they really, really like streamers. So I have these rainbow streamer props and students love looking at those. How could you incorporate those more during your circle time? Let's say your students love doing songs with gestures like Wheels on the Bus, My Caterpillar, La 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 La, those type of songs. Could you bring in more songs with gestures? We have so many on all of our social media pages. Or could you come up with some gestures on your own with songs you're already doing? So think about that. What is going well? What does your group need What types of songs or activities are going well, and how could you add that in your circle time or your music class or your caregiver class with more intention? Moving on. Part number 4, stick to your structure for 21 days. Stick to your structure for 21 days. Let's repeat it one more time. Stick to your structure for 21 days. Why? Repetition is how we learn. Repetition, repetition, repetition. How do you learn your ABCs? You say them a lot. How do you learn to ride a bike? You do it a lot. You start with training wheels, and then you take the training wheels off, and then you do it. How do you learn to write? You do it every day. How did you learn to type? You do it every day. How do you learn to speak a language? You do it every single day. Repetition builds new habits and new neural pathways. And so if you are doing the same circle time structure for 3 days and then changing it on the 4th and the 5th day, and then you're doing it again the same, and then you're changing it, and you're changing it every other day, or you're getting frustrated after 1 week or 2 weeks of it not going well, I want you to think about it as if you were going to a new workout class. Like, let's just say you've never, ever, ever tried, I'm trying to think of like a really intense type of workout, HIIT workouts, right? Oh, like I've never done a HIIT workout, right? Those are the really high intensity ones where they really get your blood pressure going. So let's say you're doing a HIIT workout and you have promised yourself that you are going to do a HIIT workout a few times every single week because you'd like to eventually complete a 45-minute class. So let's say you're like, I'm going to go every Monday through Friday. So you go Monday, you go Tuesday, you go Wednesday, but then you don't go Thursday and you don't go Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday they don't have the class. Now you've taken 4 days off, right? So then you go back Monday, but it doesn't go well because you're still really tired because you've not built up enough energy and endurance to complete the class. So then you feel like a failure. You don't go Tuesday, you go Wednesday, but then you end up feeling like a failure. And then eventually you're just like, well, I'm not going to do it at all because I can't complete a class. And there's that. Right? A lot of the times we fall off of our routines or we fall off of things because we don't stick to them consistently. And I have seen this in my own life with doing Pilates classes and yoga classes where I stay really consistent for multiple weeks and then I take a week off and then things just kind of go sour. Things just kind of go not the way I want them to go during the class. I can't finish the class. I end up getting frustrated because I took so long off. So stick to the structure for 21 days. And this is important because if you see these kiddos every single weekday, you don't see them Saturday and Sunday, so they lose that structure during those weekdays. So that's why it's important to stick to that structure for 21 days. But then on top of that, if you see these kiddos every 3 days or every 2 days and you're being consistent with the structure, they're not going to know what to expect, and that's not going to set them up for success. Now, that brings me on to my next point. Number 4 was stick to your structure for 21 days. But number 5 is in the moment, if something is not going well, don't be afraid to adjust it. So it's going to be a little bit hard for me to clearly articulate this because I take a really improvisatory, music-based approach to circle time in early childhood music classes, and it's kind of become very easy for me to do this where I course correct on the spot. And so I'll just give you an example of times I've done this. I think that will be the easiest way to convey it. So when I saw one of my classes, I would see them once a week. I would stick to the same structure every single week. But there was one week they were having a very, very, very off week. And I noticed this when I first started the circle time. And typically something I found is when students are having an off day, it's not something that's just going to happen randomly. In my experience, I've noticed it. You start noticing early signs of it and then it progresses a little bit. Sometimes they just fly off the handle, but it really depends on the student, on the day, things like that. So one of my classes was having a very off day. And even though I was sticking to the same structure, once I got to the second gestural song and I went into that third movement song, because it was an early childhood music class, so it was a 30-minute class. I just remember like they were out of control and it was just very chaotic, and it was just they were all over the place. I could not really reel them back in. So I altered my plan, and instead of doing a third gestural song, I think I did 3 instrument songs, maybe 4. I extended instrument play, and then I motioned to the teachers, can you please dim the lights? They dimmed the lights, and we just did our cool down song a little bit earlier. And then I left the class at like 23 minutes. So notice how I still stuck to my structure, but I saw where students were having a difficult time participating and they were having a difficult time staying engaged. And so I expanded upon a student preferred activity that I know the entire group really liked, which was instrument play. I brought them back in that way. But then the next week, I returned to my original structure. So here is what I want to say in regards to 4 and 5. Stick to your structure for 21 days, especially at the beginning of the school year, or especially when you first start seeing these students, because they're going to know what to expect from the structure and the routine. So it's really important to stick to it so they build up to it. But once they are familiar with it, then there can be days where you adjust to their needs if you need to. And so I really hope that I clearly articulated that, because I take a very child-led approach and I'm always following the lead of the group. And because I have the specific structure of the songs and they're oscillating between movement songs and songs where they're encouraged to sit, and I'm using the music as a container to hold their energy levels. And we will talk about that in a future video. It's called the ISO principle. We'll be going over using music to support energy levels within your circle times. We also have a series on TikTok. If you can't wait for that video, it's called the ISO principle, if you want to check that out. But while I take a child-led approach, I also know that it is important for students to follow a routine, because in society we have routines that we have to follow. We have things that we are expected to do, right? And so while it's important to take a child-led approach, I also acknowledge that children need to follow a routine and get into that routine as much as possible. So how can we provide as much support for them as they do that? Which brings me on to number 6. Ask your coworkers, your team members, or your supervisor for support and their feedback. So one of the quickest ways I have been able to adapt things within my groups that were not going well and have them go a lot smoother is by having someone else's eye on things, a supervisor, a mentor, another professional, a colleague, just having them see things from an objective third person point of view while you're working with your group, and then having them provide me with some strategies or some feedback on what I am doing. So if you're struggling during a specific circle time with a specific age group or a music class with a specific group, don't be afraid to ask your director or ask a team member for support. And here is how I would frame it. So I really like to use the sandwich method. They talk about this a lot in early childhood education, where we're starting with a positive, then we're putting the problem in the middle and ending with a closing statement. So in order to communicate things really clearly, I might say to my director, hey, so things are going really, really well on my Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday classes during circle time. However, I'm really struggling to keep children engaged on my Tuesday and Thursday classes. Do you mind coming to give me some feedback, and maybe you could provide some support in some direction there? So you're phrasing it in a way where you're not just complaining to them and you're not telling them all of your problems during the circle time, because sometimes we can utilize supervision to just kind of dump on our mentors or dump on our supervisors. However, that's not the most effective use of supervision, and that's not what our directors are there for. That's not what our supervisors are there for. They are there to support us, but they're not our therapist, and they're not there to have problems dumped on them. They're there to provide you with an objective point of view, give you feedback so you can apply it. So I'd phrase it that way to a mentor or even to a team member that has more experience than you. Hey, my classes are going really well on these days. On Tuesday and Thursday, though, everything's going great except circle time. I noticed that you're really good at circle time. Would you mind giving me some feedback on mine? Right? And that brings me to another point, and this isn't on the notes, but it just popped into my head. When you receive feedback from your mentor, from your supervisor, your director, your coworker, whoever is in the classroom with you, apply that feedback as soon as possible. So I'm going to think about all the times that this happened to me during my practicum and my internship. When my supervisor gave me feedback, I took a note on it. I said, got it, went home, did exactly what they said, came back the next week, and then in supervision, they were like, wow, I can tell you clearly worked on that. Right? So when you're getting feedback, I know sometimes it can be really hard to over consume and not apply. And I'm guilty of this too, in other areas of my life, in terms of, like my physical health and my mental health. I'll read all of these books and I could tell you everything you need to know on mental health and taking care of yourself and physical health and taking care of yourself and all these things. But sometimes I actually don't apply what it is I'm learning, right? So I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. But when you receive that feedback, immediately go and implement it into your circle time structure and immediately apply what it is your director or your mentor has told you. And this is going to really, really help you within your circle time structure, because you may have a structure. They may say, oh, I used to have a group similar to this. Add in this one song. You may add in that one song or activity, and all of a sudden your circle times have gone from the most stressful part of your day to an activity that you're like, wow, this is actually really pretty easy. I just had to add that one thing in. So if you receive supervision or you receive feedback on things, just make sure to apply it as soon as possible. Which brings me to my next point, number 7, on creating a structure. Take notes. Take notes. Take data, field data. I used to have, when I worked in an early learning center, I had a notebook where I would just write down stuff throughout the day. So I would go in my car and I would just write down like what my supervisor told me. Shout out Miss Bonnie if you're watching this. I'm going to send this to her and say I'm giving you a shout out. I used to write down what my supervisor would tell me, if they gave me any feedback, what things went well within the group, things like that. I would suggest not putting students' names in the notebook. I would just suggest initials, first and last, so that you have student confidentiality there. So you're going to know who you're talking about, but I wouldn't write students' names down in case the notebook gets lost or things like that, but just put down what's going well within your group. What didn't go well? Do you notice patterns throughout the week? Following up and piggybacking off of the point I made before this, are you taking notes throughout your day, or are you taking notes during circle time and then shoving the journal away and never looking at it? Don't do that. What went well? What's not going well? Look at that data at the end of the week and assess things. Monday, hello song went really well. Movement song went really well. Gestural song did not go well. Movement song went really well. Second gestural song went really well. Instrument song was really chaotic. Tuesday, hello song went really well. Movement song went really well. First gestural song did not go well. Second movement song went really well. Second gestural song went really well. Instrument song was a complete mess. I skipped the cool down song because it was so chaotic. Wednesday, hello song went really well. Movement song went really well. First gestural song did not go well. Second movement song went really well. Second gestural song went really well. Instrument song, chaos again. Thursday, Right there, you're already noticing a pattern Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That students are responding well to the hello song, well to all of movement songs. The only things that seem to be inconsistent are the gestural song, that first one, and instrument passing out is chaotic. Could you switch things if things continue to stay chaotic? So you're taking your notes, you're doing your observing. Monday through Friday, you're finding that same pattern is repeating. Then you're repeating it the second week, but you're noticing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, students are getting used to you passing out the instruments, and you found a way to structure passing out instruments in a way that's intentional, in a way that is really clear and concise, and you're giving them direct directions, and you're modeling exactly what it is they're doing, so that's going better. So the only thing you're struggling with is that first gestural song because they still are not really used to it. Then Thursday and Friday, instrument song goes really, really smoothly. Then that third week, because we're keeping the same structure for a minimum of 21 days. Then that third week on Monday, it's a little chaotic. That gestural song, that first one still does not go well, but everything else goes good. Tuesday, students are literally listening to every single direction you're giving as you're passing out instruments. Wednesday, everything's going well except that first gestural song. Thursday, same thing. Friday, same thing. Now you can look at your notes after 21 days and you can clearly see everything about that structure is not working except one thing, and that is the order of the activities. So you switch them. Hello song, movement song 1, movement song 2, gestural song 1 and gestural song 2, instrument song, cool down song. You do that and the entire thing just flows. And now you have a perfect circle time structure. Now, I will say, if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, if I had noticed that things were not going well on the first gestural song and on the instrument song that first week, then I would have just canned both of those. Here's what I have to say to this. You can do whatever you'd like. Take this information, apply it. You don't like this information, leave it. I'm assuming if you're still here after this long, lengthy video, you're probably liking the information, but all of this information I'm sharing is based off of my experience. You can do whatever you'd like with it. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, change it a little bit, do whatever you want. So if in your head, you know for your age group that after 1 week, you want to change the structure, then do that. I'm just sharing with you what has worked for me in the past. So those are all of my tips on creating a circle time structure that is tailored to your students' specific needs and then your needs as an individual educator. Thank you so much for watching this series. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.